Welcome, everyone, to the December 16th, 2020 Octant community meeting. Today we've got a good agenda full of things, and yeah, no open Q&A yet. I forgot to add that section. Let me do that right now in case something comes up while we're talking. There we go. All right, so we'll just jump right in and get started. The Electron Build branch. It is live, and what I mean by that is that there is a branch that has Electron actions in it. And let me see if I can get it pulled up here. Electron Builder, there it is. Put that on the screen. I'll link it in the doc as well. So this is a branch that Sam and I have been working on. We have tested the GitHub action, and it does produce a very large binary. That's like 400 megabytes that has all of the binary distributions in one file. So it's got like the Mac, Linux, Windows all in a single file. We're going to work to get those assets so that they're maybe broken out somehow. I don't know if it's possible with actions to say like, here are the three things we produced instead of it all being in one giant zip file. But that branch is available for folks to check out and build from. I am pushing up some changes now that will fix the local Electron build. Right now, if you run npm run, well, it's our, I'll just pull it up since we have this here.
I think it's Electron Builder, right?
Yeah, so
Electron Build, yeah.
Yeah, npm Electron Build. So right now that doesn't work exactly how it should. It's missing some of the, it's just missing some things. We need to make sure that the main.ts file is being transpiled into JavaScript. We need to make sure that the extra resources folder contains the binary asset of the Octant API itself. So we have this on line 19, we have this build Electron, which is doing like this first set of build. We're using that in the action that we've set up. So we're gonna condense these things and merge or create some different scripts to get this build running locally. We'll also probably make some updates to the build.go file to give you like a one line command that can just kind of go and do what's necessary to get a binary that is running Octant as Electron. So that's very exciting. That's all happening right now. I know this has been a long time coming, but once the build pipeline is automated and building this thing with a nightly, then we'll be able to start to focus on knocking out some of the issues around Electron, which we have started to collect here into this project, which has the list of outstanding work and completed work. Essentially, this is Electron specific work that needs to get done. So I think that's it on Electron. I don't know if I missed anything. Sam, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. And I guess for anyone who's new to this community meeting or watching it for the first time, oh man, the Electron build has been around for a while in the form of Ask Electron, and we are just shifting the tool chain mainly because by adopting something a bit more standardized, it gives us easier access to things like auto updating, and it really just helps us out in the long term to do it this particular way. So even though it might seem a little funny to start the Octant server as a sub process using Node, this is going to allow us to increase productivity in the long term.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a good call. Added that to the doc. Yeah, that's kind of I think that's it. I was gonna, well, that's just Octant. I don't know how that came up. Yeah, so that covers that. So if there's nothing else there, we'll move on to the next item, which is the PR that Brian put up. So there was there's been a long, this has come up multiple times before with kind of how we show custom resources. So specifically around versions. So it was like this kind of weird thing where you would like see all of them listed out. Basically, when we first did this, we weren't exactly sure how we wanted to do it. So we just listed them out with their own heading and their own tables, right? So you would come to this page and you would see every version that was installed listed out individually. And a lot of times that was confusing or created duplicates. So what this PR does is it defaults to showing the preferred version, which the server provides us. And then when you click through into the actual resource itself, you'll be looking at that version. And then in the summary, you can switch between the versions that you're viewing, which will have the effect of updating the metadata and like the YAML information. So you could see what it means, like what it means to be looking at a different version. I think long-term, we would have some form of like diff view or like show me the difference between these versions. I don't know exactly what that would look like yet, but that's where this is headed. That's the general direction here. I was testing out this PR and doing a review of it yesterday. Everything looks good. I think we just need to add a changelog entry for it. But this will be a nice positive change for people who are dealing with lots of custom resources and various versions. Next here, I have Octant OKRs. I think Pia might have something to share around this, or at least talk about. So I will hand over to her.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. And so I just wanted to share with the community the objectives and key results we've come up with. So as you know, I'm new to the team, and Isha, the designer, is fairly new. I'm the product manager. So we wanted to just get everyone on the same page to talk about what are our goals for the first quarter of next year. And we wanted to share that out with the community and always open to feedback. So just to start out, here we talk about what Octant is, and it's an open source application that allows introspection into K8s clusters. And it also is very useful for plugins. Users can extend the Octant UI using those plugins. We talk about our major goals here in the second paragraph, and that's Project Octant to be a graphical analog for kubectl and to be a part of the must install tooling that all developers have who are on using Kubernetes, because we believe that it can help make Kubernetes more accessible by lowering barriers around learning. And the last thing I have in this section about Project Octant is that we are a team that works for VMware, as you may be aware, and we believe that VMware's investment in Octant provides an opportunity for VMware to be a well-known contributor in the Kubernetes space. So that kind of sums up who we are. And then here we have our objectives and key results for the beginning of the year. And so our first objective is to continue building value for the open source community. So of course, everything we do is for open source first. And some of these key results will be around looking into what does it mean to donate to a foundation, establishing feedback loops with our users, defining the MVP for our highest impact features, which can be found on our roadmap, and creating a plan that shows that we do intend to continue improving code quality and reducing tech debt. Our second objective here is we really want to double down on our extensibility to help enable us to become the foundation for a wide family of products. So we are hoping to work on the plugin documentation to start, And with that, one of the key results we hope to see is a reduction in the number of Slack questions and open issues regarding plugins. We're hoping that documentation is comprehensive and accessible so that there is not as much confusion around it, and it's helping plugin authors. We also expect to work with one of our adjacent VMware teams to help them use the extensibility of Octant as well. And then the third objective we have here is identify where Octant falls into the Tanzu customer journey inside of VMware. So we have a lot of buzz around Octant at VMware. A lot of teams want to build alongside it, on top of it, and so on. And so we're going to spend the first quarter kind of defining where those touch points are between the teams and what they plan to do with Octant. And of course, that's always good news for the community as we get more people interested in working with Octant. So I think that sums up our objectives for the first quarter, and we're excited to get started on these things. We're already doing most of these things, but excited to do them with a balanced team of a product manager and a designer.
Awesome, excellent. Yeah, thank you. And Pio worked closely with us and all of us, Isha and the engineering team, to kind of define all these. And so I think they're really good representation of what we're trying to do, and do a good job of kind of highlighting what our intentions are, and hopefully what some of those results, some of the outcomes will be. So yeah, thank you so much for putting this together. I don't really have any questions or extra comments there, because we talked about it so much leading up just to form it. So I don't know if anyone else does.
All right, and you can always reach out to us on our Slack.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. So I will move on to the next item there, which is switching from ZenHub to GitHub projects. So this is something that really just came up kind of on a whim. We didn't have any discussions with people about it at all. I just decided to do it. It's one of those executive decision type things. The problem that we had with ZenHub was twofold. We weren't committed to it, so we weren't maintaining it. And the extra step of having to log in or have to have some type of browser extension or extra tooling to get to the good features of ZenHub made it less accessible to folks in general. Like it was just a barrier for people. They would go, oh, is this documented somewhere? And I would say, yeah, you can see it in the epic of our ZenHub. And they would go, well, I can't see that. And then you'd send them the link to ZenHub, and they would go, oh, is there a way to see this in GitHub? And you'd be like, no. Well, there is. Here's a browser extension. And they're like, I want to install a browser extension to view your epic. So it was, I get it. So this happened just a couple days ago. And so now the flow that we're going to have here is very similar to what we had before in ZenHub, but it will be broken down a little bit more into digestible pieces. And instead of having epics for the very large things, we'll have buckets, we'll have projects, and projects will essentially kind of act as, and there'll be two types of projects. There'll be, or actually three types. There'll be epics, essentially, then there'll be releases, and then there'll also be just our general backlog. So I want to just go over these things. I'm going to push a PR. I'm going to put up a PR to update our language that we have in the contributing doc to outline all of this as well. But I just wanted to cover it quickly in the community meeting here. So I'll start with the one that I think most people interact with, which will be our release projects. So inside here, this is a standard like Kanban style flow. These are the issues that'll be part of this sprint. This is the stuff in progress, in review, approved, and done, right? And so I make a note that hopefully we're targeting this release for somewhere around January 13th, but really is once the stuff that's in this list is done, that's when the release will go out. Things may be brought in and other things brought out, like exchanged based on priority and need. But for the most part, this is a good snapshot of like what our current work is encompassing and what we're focused on for ODOT 17. And then similar, there's an ODOT 18, which is no work has been started on this yet, but we're starting to fill in issues here. Like these are all plugin related issues. So you can see like the theme is probably going to be a big focus on like extending our plugin API and fixing or addressing any things that came out of the ODOT 17 release with our Electron build, right? So these things are now accessible directly through GitHub as projects, and you can kind of follow along and track them there. And then the backlog project is now our triaging incoming. So issues land in the incoming. They get looked at, verified, triaged, make sure, add labels, do what we need to do. And then once we've said, yes, this is a real issue, we pop it over into unsorted. Unsorted is literally that. It's just a bucket of all our unsorted issues that are not part of a bigger initiative or like fundamental to some of the other like epic projects. They'll land in here. So this is like your bug fixes and general enhancement requests, things like refactoring and extension, unrelated design work, things like that will all land kind of in this bucket. And then as they are groomed, they'll get moved over to this. And this is a priority order of issues. So like things that have a PR in draft, right, that aren't necessarily ready to be worked on or part of any current sprint, they're going to be up higher in priority. Well-defined bugs, things that are impacting people that we've had lots of reports of, whatever. This will be groomed and kind of in that priority order. Things that are blocked, and then anything that happens to be closed. Generally, this closed will be empty because issues will flow into here, end up in groomed, and then from groomed, they would get picked out. Like if we were going to work on this for ODOT 18, right, I would go and I would add it to ODOT 18 and remove it from the backlog of stories here. And same with when a release is when like a project is completed. If we are looking at like ODOT 17 and we get through all of these and there's 2 left in here and we're not going to do them and they're not going to go to ODOT 18, right? Then I would take them and I would kick them back into I would just kick them back into the backlog. And when you kick stuff into the backlog, it goes into this triaged state, and then you can arrange it to be, incoming, unsorted, or groomed. And so that, I think that mostly covers it, right? Like each of these are dedicated to, like, these are all the plugin stories, and it's not necessarily like mapping labels to the project. It's more about like these stories encompass the effort. What was the old plugin epic? These stories kind of encompass that. And these stories work, like they get design work, they can land in unsorted, they get groomed and put in priority order. And then when we're building out a sprint, we'll go into the groomed section for each thing. So there'll be groomed resource viewer issues and groomed Electron application issues, groomed documentation issues, and we'll pull those in to these project sprints. And then as these get completed, those sprints will get closed out. So that's kind of like a high level quick overview of how our flow is going to work. I'm going to document it in the contributing markdown file and make sure that it's clear and call out how each thing works and what all the lanes mean. Similar to what we do now. We have it now for ZenHub. It's right here, ZenHub lanes. So this section here will end up getting rewritten, and we'll use projects and talk about that. And then, so what you can expect to see in some of the future community meetings as well is us kind of pulling up like the current release, talking about what's in flight, what we're working on. I think that'll also help people be able to get better insight into all the things that are happening within Octant, and focus on the area you care about. Like if you really care about plugin stuff, you can go to the plugin project and see what's going on here. Or if you're really interested in the next release, you can go and check out what's coming up in the next release. So yeah, and everything's moved. I think at this point, everything did get moved. Like if you come in here and you say no project, you get one issue, and this is a bug because this is in a project. It's in the backlog and unsorted. I don't know why it shows up, but everything, there's no issues currently that are not part of some project somewhere. So questions, comments, concerns? Are people upset that I made an executive decision?
I think this is awesome. I love it. And so I have a question. Where is the info about projects and all that stored? Does the GitHub do that? Is GitHub doing that on its own?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's great, because that's the thing I didn't like about ZenHub, because it was virtually using comments for that and polluting a lot of comments, introducing the noise. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and like special labels that were only really there for the purpose
Right.
of ZenHub and things like that. And so none of those labels exist anymore either now, right? It's just our
That's
labels. Awesome. And that's pretty much it. I think, yeah, I don't think there's anything left over from ZenHub. So
I love it. Yeah.
any other questions, comments? Does it make sense? It's confusing. Not good.
Oh, this looks good. Thanks for moving all of these things over.
Cool. All right.
I think like looking forward in the future, we could have something like a GitHub bot that can also like track movements of how we whiz the cards around, just to encourage us to keep it up to date. But
yeah. So
this is great.
Yeah. So the lanes themselves do have some automation. So like issues that are added to the project will automatically get put into this lane. And then like here, issues that are reopened or pull requests against an issue, right, will automatically get added to the in progress lane. Same with reviews, right? Like as you review it, when it has a pending approval, it'll get removed. It gets moved here. And then finally, when it's approved, it gets moved here. So we do get some automation there for free, which is nice. And I think it will give us a thing to pull up in our stand-ups and at this meeting. And I honestly, half the time I go to click on ZenHub, I'm not logged in anymore. And then I'm like, forget it. Like, I don't want to do it. So I'm always logged into GitHub. So now we don't have an excuse to not track our things and move them properly. So.
Yeah, GitHub also has now discussions feature, which is something that we should maybe consider at some point.
Yeah, we're using it.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Come on, Milan. That's what we. No, yeah. I was going to talk about that at it's actually one of the next. It's the next item actually. So we just turned it on like 2 weeks ago, right before vacations. So
excellent.
Yeah, so it's a good time. I can move on to that. So we enabled GitHub Discussions. We talked about this in the last community meeting where we had, or 2 community meetings ago, where we were migrating all of the content from our community meetings over to Discussions so that folks could have like longer form conversations about any of the items that come up during a community meeting. The other thing is that now we have this, we also have this place to have longer form discussions about anything, right? Anything related to Octant. And this morning, I wanted to highlight a couple that we currently have going, which are, this one is the Octant modules as plugins. There's an issue, which this idea originally came up in, and then we just wanted to start to like tease out ideas, make sure there wasn't things we weren't thinking about, and start to decide on like what an implementation and things like that might look like. Then we'll take that from this conversation and move it back into 1293. So we also have breadcrumb implementation discussion that was opened yesterday as a result of some demo and talk during a stand-up. So this is kind of what you can expect to start to see, is more discussions happening here. We got to still develop kind of a cadence around it and like ourselves get better at using it. But this is what I really want to use as our primary area to have discussions and get them started and be able to do it in an asynchronous fashion that is a little less ephemeral than a Slack conversation or a Slack thread. So, but also not a Google group, essentially, is what so I'm like, yeah, you can do Google groups, and I know a lot of people like them, but I don't know. They're fine, but I think this is better. So yeah, that's it. That's kind of all I have to say. Expect more discussions, expect more mention of discussions, and that's all I got.
For the record, this was the best answer ever. Thank you.
I like the expect more mention of discussions part.
Yeah. And let's see. I think I covered everything there. No one's added any Q&A. So Isha, did you have anything to add on the resource viewer design work that has been happening? I wasn't sure if there was anything new there.
No. So
Okay.
I've been doing so we did some interviews last week and got some feedback. We got a lot of really great ideas. But I think where we're going to start is like scoping it down to solve one problem first, because there's a couple problems we could solve, right? It's like showing more information, it's the usability, it's the visuals. And right now, I think it would be best to just focus on the usability. Like what happens when the resource viewer gets like really, really wide, and what are different ways that we can format it, and like also honor like that drill down model where it's like you have a higher level and you can like zoom in. So yeah, just narrowing down the scope of work and also just focusing on the visuals as well. But I don't really have anything to show right now in terms of that, but I have been working on it.
Excellent. Okay. And then I guess the last thing I wanted to remind people about, because I think, wait, let me check. Hold on. No. Are we doing? Okay. Question for folks here. Are we doing? We'll have a community meeting next week. Well, I plan to have one. Are we going to have one on the 30th? Are folks going to be around for the 30th? Mainly Sam and/or Milan, because the end of the month is when we're supposed to do our labeling. And I was wondering if we wanted to make sure we get that done so that going into the new year, it's ready to go. Or we could plan to do it the first community meeting of the new year. Just trying to get an idea of how folks feel about that and if folks are going to be around or not.
I'll be out both next 2 Wednesdays, but I can join in just for the meeting.
Okay. Sam? Maybe. All right. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
I lost him. I think he pressed the wrong button.
So yeah, okay. If people, we'll schedule the meetings, and basically if folks show up, if folks are around and show up, like if people are around and want to show up to do some of the good first issue labeling, then we'll do it. If not, then maybe I'll just use it to like live stream writing a plugin or something fun.
Sorry, I just dropped. I heard the good first issues labeling, whether or not we want to do it on 30th. I think that's totally fine. We could also experiment doing it in an asynchronous way as well. We could have something like candidates for good first issue, and then maybe we can just like democratize it and say if at least two people think that's a good first issue, then we just stick the label on it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I like that too. I think, yeah, I think part of the motive, the goal with the good first issues was to maybe already have them labeled. Yeah, so going over the backlog, highlighting our help wanted first issues list, and then like add more context. And then the third item was, label issues that are good candidates. So the most important parts to me are these first two, which is provide help, answer questions, add more context to issues. So I think you're right. I think we can build a list asynchronously and then use the end of the month to, like, once we have that list of issues, use the end of the month review to pick a couple and make sure that they have really good like context in the issues, really good call outs of where and how you might implement it, and really good like guided direction of how to get started and what approach one might take to get started. Like I think that's the goal here for the good first issues, more than just getting the label on it.
I guess just to clarify the conversation. So in a nutshell, we are still having the meeting on the 30th, and we're gonna still proceed with good first issues, just to keep things simple.
Yeah. So we'll have the meeting on the 30th. We will go through what we have labeled as good first issues and make sure they have context and links to spots in the code or uh, hints and help about implementation strategy. But we won't we won't go through the issues and label them on that call. We'll just label stuff asynchronously off, like you were saying. And then if no one shows up on to that meeting, then I was telling Milan that I'll just do something like live code a plugin or something. Just do something fun. Okay. And I think that's it for our open Q&A. Yeah. No questions. So no questions in the chat. So I think we're done. I think we can call it. All right.